One of the Sunday school kids, he doesn't see his parents or grandparents to come get him, but his mom has their phone numbers, so he can. I don't. Okay.
Just tell him his father will come and pick him up. Where's the child from the Sunday school? Where's? Just tell him to sit over here. His father will come and will pick him up. Just sit over here. And your father will come, he will pick you up. Just sit down. The father will pick you up. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله وسلم وبارك على أشرف المخلوقين سيدنا ونبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Inshallah, we'll be continuing the study of Tafseer Quran from Surah At-Taghabun. And we were able to do up to ayah number 12. Ayah number 13, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Allahu la ilaha illahu wa ala Allahi falyatawakkal al-mu'minun. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu inna min azwajikum wa awladikum aduwwan lakum fahdharuhum. Wa in ta'fu wa tasfahu wa taghfiru fa inna Allaha ghafurur rahim. Innama amwalukum wa awladukum fitnah. والله عنده أجر عظيم فاتقوا الله ما استطعتم واسمعوا وأطيعوا وأنفقوا خيرا لأنفسكم ومن يوق شح نفسه فأولئك هم المفلحون إن تقرضوا الله قرضا حسنا يضاعفه لكم ويغفر لكم والله شكور حليم عالم الغيب والشهادة العزيز الحكيم. صدق الله العظيم. So the ayahs that we just recited, it is completely different from the subject of the previous ayah that we studied before. It's more a reminder. Last week we were talking about that anything that's happening in the world, it is all with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we also said last week, some of the people in Mecca claim that there will be no day of judgment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala confirmed, and He said definitely there will be a day of judgment. And you will be accountable in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now the ayat that I just recited, especially when Allah said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu inna min azwajikum wa awladikum aduwwan lakum fahdharuhum. The scholars of Tafseer said the entire Surah of Taghabun, from the first ayah up to the ayah number 13, it talks about specific topic. But the last 6 ayahs, the last few ayahs were revealed for a different circumstances. And we will see that. So the ayah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you the believers, those who have believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna min azwajikum wa awladikum aduwwan lakum fahdharuhum. Inna, indeed, min azwajikum, among your spouses, wa awladikum, your children, aduwwan lakum fahdharuhum, an enemy for you. Subhanallah. Allah is saying to us that among our spouses and our children could be an enemy for us. فَاحْذَرُوهُمْ. Be careful. Be cautious with them. They said the reason for the revelation of these ayahs, that some of the people, when they were in Mecca, and after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrated to Medina, so they also wanted to migrate, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was inviting all the believers, he's right there. He want to exchange with you. So some of the believers, they wanted also to join Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he was calling for everyone to migrate to Medina. And we know that the hijrah, it's an honor. It's an honor for the believers. But some people, they could not. And the reason, they want to. But their children and their spouses, they said, you're going to leave us alone here in Mecca. And who's going to help us? Who's going to support us? So we'll be by ourselves. So they put so much pressure on them that they give up the hijrah. And they stayed in Medina. They stayed in Mecca instead of joining Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now you start thinking about it. How is that possible? It was, again, a choice, and a very difficult choice to make. Are you going to stay with your family, or are you going to join Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And joining Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it is actually a sacrifice. You're going to leave everything behind you. You're going to leave, again, your family, and you're going to leave your business, and you're going to leave everything, just for the sake of what? Of the hijrah. That you will go to Medina and support Islam. Not only that, migrating to Medina, remember, you're going to migrate and you become like a refugee over there, and you don't have anything. So anybody who migrates to Medina, you're going to leave everything behind him. His wealth, his business, and he's going to start from zero. And they will be suffering. So again, some of the families put a lot of pressures on the household, on the fathers. Say, you cannot go, you have to stay. So they decided to stay. And they stayed. And that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, inna min azwajikum, among your spouses, wa awladikum, and your children, aduwwal lakum, an enemy for you. Now still he's not going to match in your mind, say how that could be an enemy for me, my wife and my child. And all what they're asking me to stay with them. And that's also their right. So the scholars explain it in such a beautiful way. They said, an enemy for you is not as a personal enemy, but the action of that person, it is the action of an enemy for you. So what's your enemy want you to do? Or what he is pushing you to do? He is preventing you from doing something good. He is preventing you from gaining a reward. And that's the action of a spouse or a child. They don't do it intentionally. They don't do it intentionally to lead you to something bad, but because of their presence and because of their value and because of their fear, they're going to push you to stay in Mecca rather than to join Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, we see it from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's life. He was actually on his manbar giving a speech. It could be probably a Friday khutbah. And all of a sudden, he saw his little grandson coming out. Remember, anyone who had the chance to go to Al-Masjid al-Nabawi and he sees the manbar of Rasulullah still there. When you stand there, what is in front of you on your right, it is actually what we call the grave of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? That in the Prophet's life, it was not his grave. That was his house. And that house was connected to the masjid. It was not a part of the masjid. That was actually the room of Aisha radiallahu anha. So all the Prophet's wives, used to have each one of them her own room. So Aisha and Hafsa and Maymuna, Salama, and so on. So the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, that used to be. So that room that I'm saying, let's say that door, that's something very similar to what we have. So the little child, Al-Hassan, when Rasulullah was giving the khutbah, he opened the door, and mostly there was almost no doors there, the way we have, and he just walked in. So when he was walking in, he was wearing some very long clothes. And then when he was coming, a little child, probably 2-3 years old, so he fell down the first time. Rasulullah was giving the speech and he was watching. Fall down the second time. And the heart of a grandfather, what can he do? Right? So what he did, he stopped his khutbah and he went down from the manbar. He went to his little grandson, he carried him, and he brought him to the manbar, and then he said, indeed, إِنَّمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَأَوْلَادُكُمْ fitna. He said, indeed, your wealth and your children could be a fitna, something that will distract you. And then he added, and he said, I saw this little child of mine falling down the first time, the second time, I couldn't take it. So that's why I went down. Going back again, that's exactly what this ayah is saying. Among your family, could be your spouse, it could be your children, sometimes the situation or the circumstances may force you, may push you to do something which is not right. Small example. I have a child or many kids, and especially this is the situation that we're facing here in America. So they want to join a certain college. I don't have money, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a loan. I know that loan is not allowed because it will be based in interest. But so no, don't worry, it's only about education, it's okay. So you see what you're going to do? You're going to validate something which is not right. You will be doing something which is not right. Well, that's actually, it's like an enemy is pushing you to do so. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayah is explaining, and it could be many things. It could be even a person in any situation, and that push a person to take a decision which he's not comfortable with, but he will take it because of the circumstances. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you the believers, inna min azwajikum wa awladikum, among your spouses and your children, aduwwan lakum, an enemy for you, fahdharuhum. Be careful, be cautious. Be careful. Just because you want to please that child or that spouse or that daughter or that son, you may what? You may break the rules. Thinking that I cannot do better than this. Now going back again to the incident. So those people who lived in Mecca and their children or their spouses hold them and did not let them go. After a while, they realized that. They realized that all the believers migrated to Medina. They are with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And now, after those people also, they were able to join Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they realized that we lost a lot. We lost a lot of what? Of knowledge, of learning. Because the people who migrated first with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to sit with him, to stay with him, pray behind him, listen to his lectures, go with him to the battlefield. It's a lot of reward. And those who join after, they are behind. They felt guilty. They felt bad. And not only that, they probably felt that they should blame their spouses and their children, subhanAllah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, yes, indeed those people, it's like an enemy for you because of what they did or the situation. But Allah said, وَإِن تَعْفُوا وَتَصْفَحُوا وَتَغْفِرُوا. But if you forgive them, whatever happened already happened. Yeah, you should have been cautious. You should know what is your priority, what comes first, what comes second. But if everything is done, it's already done. Do not keep them or do not think about them as your enemy. Remember one thing, sometimes we, because of the situation, we start taking somebody as an enemy. Remember, you have only one enemy. Only one. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that in the Quran. إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌ فَاتَّخِذُوهُ عَدُوًّا. Allah said to us, indeed your enemy is only one, shaitan, nobody else. And sometimes we take a lot of enemies. We consider them as enemies. You dispute with them, you fight with them, then that person becomes an enemy. He cannot be your enemy. Probably you don't like what he said, you don't like his action, but it doesn't mean that you're going to take him as an enemy, because that person may turn completely to a different person. Wahshi, he killed Hamza radiallahu anhu, the uncle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And of course, that hurts the Prophet a lot. But Rasulullah is going to take Wahshi as his enemy all his life? Why he can't? Because Wahshi accepted Islam later on. And he came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Wahshi accepted Islam and became a good Muslim. And you know what? He felt very guilty about what he did. So he was actually the one who participated in the battle of what we call Yamama after Rasulullah passed away. And he was the one who killed Musaylima al-Kadhab. Musaylima, the one who pretended to be a prophet. And he caused a lot of harm to the Muslims. So he's not an enemy anymore. He is a Muslim. He's a good Muslim. And when he was killing him, he said, "Oh Allah, I'm asking you to forgive me. Just like I killed the best of the people," referring to Hamza, I tried my best to kill the worst of the people, which is Musaylima. Same thing happened with Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. His brother was killed also, Zayd ibn al-Khattab. And the person who killed Zayd came to Umar when Umar became the Khalifa. And he came to Umar asking him for his right. His right is what? Usually Amir al-Mu'mineen, the person who is in charge, has a lot of money from the Muslims, Baytul Mal, right? So he's the one to distribute to the people according to their rights. So when he came, and Umar he knew him very well. Still Umar, he has to give him his right. So he gave him. But Umar still had something in his mind and in his heart. Because that's the person who killed his brother. And he said to him, "You know what? By Allah, I don't like you." And that person looked at him and he said, "Awatamna'uni haqqan?" Because you don't like me, you are going to prevent me from getting my right? He said, "No. But I'm not going to like you. I'm not going to love you in this one if you want. I always see that you are the killer of my brother." And that person is very, very smart. So he left and then he came back to him. And he said, "Innama yabki ala al-hubb nisa." He said, "Listen, if you're not going to love me, indeed only women will cry because of love. So if you, Umar, don't love me, that's okay." Going back again. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, even the people that probably you see them as your enemies because they hold you or they took you away from getting certain reward, still forgive them and let it go. And Allah said, وَإِن تَغْفِرُوا, and if you forgive them, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Indeed Allah is Ghafur and He is Rahim, has those characters of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, whenever your mind got stuck with something and then you don't see any room for you to forgive someone, and you feel like that person, there's no way for you to cooperate with that person, just remember yourself, me and you, how many sins we do every day. Still Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He forgives you. So if you want Allah to apply the rule of forgiving for you, you do have also to apply the rule of forgiving with others. If you want to get mercy, well, you get to give mercy. If you want to get maghfirah, well, you get to give maghfirah. And the maghfirah that you're giving is only a little, but the maghfirah that you're getting is a lot. If a person made something an issue with you, could be once, twice, 3 times, 10 times, but imagine how many sins we sin every day, since the age of puberty until whatever age you are. Still Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is all forgiving and He is all merciful. He's still allowing you to breathe. He's still allowing you to think. He's still allowing you to speak and to talk and to see. And all this are ni'am from Him, out of His maghfirah and rahmah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَأَوْلَادُكُمْ fitna. Indeed, your wealth and your children are fitna, are a trial. See, wealth and children, in both ways. If you have them or you don't have them, it's a fitna. If you have them, you will be tested with that. You have wealth, how are you going to spend it? How are you going to do it? You have children, oh, I don't know how you're going to be able to fulfill all their needs. Right now, the other way. You have, or you don't have. You don't have money, so you keep thinking about it all the time. You don't have children, you keep thinking about them all the time. So in both cases, you have or you don't have, it's a fitna. It's a trial from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How many people, they don't have kids? And because of that, they keep thinking about it. And then they wish. And then they even want, and they go to do a lot of crazy stuff. Men and women, subhanAllah. They may do things which is crazy just because I want to have a child. I cannot be without kids. I, subhanAllah. Same for the wealth. Always people, they want from this dunya. And that's something which is built in the heart of the human being. So you have or you don't have. Both of them are tests from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِنَّمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَأَوْلَادُكُمْ فِتْنَةٌ وَاللَّهُ عِنْدَهُ أَجْرٌ عَظِيمٌ. But Allah has a great reward. So if you have the wealth and children, or if you don't have, remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a reward for you. Having or being able, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed you with the wealth and with the children, Allah is watching you how you're going to use that. And with that, you will be rewarded. And you don't have them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be watching you. And with that sabr also, you will be rewarded. Just imagine the way how you using the thing. Either you have or you don't have. Both of them is a big trial. And I'll tell you, some of the Sahaba, they said, the trial of having money and wealth and children is even more than if you don't have. And some of the Sahaba, they said, when Surah Al-Anfal was revealed, in the beginning of Surah Al-Anfal, which is revealed after the Battle of Badr. So after the Battle of Badr, even the Sahaba, they actually dispute among the ghanima, what they gain out of Badr. And they start fighting, who's going to take, who's not going to take, how much is going to take. And the ayah came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْأَنْفَالِ. They're asking you about this Anfal. قُلِ الْأَنْفَالُ لِلَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. It is all for Allah and His Rasul. I'm depriving you from all that. And one of the Sahaba, he said, this surah of Anfal, or the beginning of surah of Anfal, نَزَلَتْ فِينَا حِينَمَا سَاءَتْ أَخْلَاقُنَا. It was revealed because of us when our characters was not good. We start disputing and fighting because of the wealth, subhanAllah. And some of the Sahaba also said we were tested with poverty and we were able to resist. And that's what happened in Mecca. They were poor, didn't have, and even in Medina after they migrated. And then he said once we were tested with wealth, it was much more difficult. And we know what happened to the Muslims community and society once the Muslims became very rich in the time of Uthman radiallahu anh, and in the time of Ali radiallahu anh, and so on. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, إِنَّمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَأَوْلَادُكُمْ فِتْنَةٌ وَاللَّهُ عِنْدَهُ أَجْرٌ عَظِيمٌ فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Beautiful. This is again the beautiful wording of the Quran. Now when we talk about that, it makes a person be confused. How can I resist? How can I resist to the dunya? How can I resist to the need of my spouse, to my children, myself? How can I resist when I see everything around me? What I'm going to do? I can't. Still Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as much as you can. And remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't ask you doesn't talk to you like you're an angel. He talks to you and Allah knows that you are a human, that you have needs, that you have some necessities, and you have. So fear Allah as much as you can. Don't just give up. Yes, we're gonna commit sins. That's for sure. But always be aware that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching you. And when you commit sin, ask Allah for forgiveness from your bottom of your heart. Nobody is perfect. And we will be committing sins. And we will be making the sins and the same sin again and again and again. But it has to be always in your mind that that's a sin, is not halal. And this is a very important point. Do not normalize haram. If I know haram and I keep always say it's haram, it is haram. And when I fall in that haram, I ask for Allah to forgive me and I feel guilty. That's the norm. a norm for a person who is committing a sin. But when you start doing what? Validating the haram. When you do haram and you say, no, it's not haram. No. And they start finding any excuse. Not only that, sometimes we encourage others in order to satisfy ourselves. Just like the issue of riba, let's say. So when you do it and then you start telling the people, oh, don't worry, it's okay, now it's a different time. So it's not only you do it, but you're pushing someone else to do it. That has nothing to do with the taqwa. At least, if you are involved in that, feel that it's wrong and it's haram and you will be punished. But at least you have also, don't push another person to follow the same just because you want him to be like you. Just to get some kind of satisfaction for you, okay, it's not only me who's doing it, he's also doing it. If a billion of people will be with you in Jahannam, that's not going to give you anything else, anything extra. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ وَاسْمَعُوا وَأَطِيعُوا. Listen and obey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَأَنْفِقُوا خَيْرًا لِأَنفُسِكُمْ. And if you really, probably this is one of the best solutions. When a person fell in any kind of mistake and sins, one of the best things is what? Is to do infaq fi sabilillah, to spend for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To spend for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again, sincerely from the bottom of your heart that He will forgive you, not to show off. Just remember that. When nobody is watching and you give that sadaqah, and you ask Allah, I'm giving this, and I know You are the one who's given me the ability to give it, but accept it from me and forgive me. That may cover, I say may cover, some of our sins. وَمَنْ يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Shuh is called also bukhl, being stingy. The stinginess of on ourselves, subhanallah. When it comes to any matter, it's not only about the money, even to the ibadah, how stingy you are. Even in the mu'amalat, how stingy you are. Sometimes you don't even want to smile. That's also being stingy. You don't want to even help in anything. You don't even give a little service. That's also being stingy, subhanallah. Then the last ayah, or the last two ayahs, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِن تُقْرِضُوا اللَّهَ قَرْضًا حَسَنًا يُضَاعِفُ لَكُمْ. If you give a loan to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is again the beauty how the Quran talks to us. I don't know how you see it, or how we see it. When Allah says, give me a loan. Give me a loan, subhanallah. Does Allah need a loan from us? No, He's not. He doesn't need anything from anybody. Definitely, He does not need anything from anyone. But imagine Allah is honoring you and He's coming to you and say, give me a loan. And I will give you back and I will double that for you. I just want to know if you feel it in the proper way, how you are being honored by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who does not need. He is the giver. He is coming to me and you and me, we the poor people, poor servants, and He saying, give me a loan. Give me a loan from you. And then okay, I'm giving a loan to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah doesn't need your loan, doesn't need anything. How are you giving that loan? The loan is by giving it to someone else. Is by giving it to the poor and needy people. Somebody will say, you know what? Just think about it in this way. Do not be like the Jews. And I mean it with this word. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that in the Quran. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the people, give a loan to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Guess what they said? الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ فَقِيرٌ وَنَحْنُ أَغْنِيَاءٌ. They say Allah is poor. That's why He's asking us for a loan. Imagine, and that's mentioned in the Quran. الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ فَقِيرٌ وَنَحْنُ أَغْنِيَاءٌ سَنَكْتُبُ مَا قَالُوا. Allah said, we will write down what they said. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't need anyone. Actually, He's honoring you. Another thing also, which is very important. We all being created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Muslims and the non-Muslims. The good and the bad. The kafir and the Muslims. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, give to your brother. Well, actually, who is in charge of that person? That's not me and you. Who is in charge of that person is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator. Anyone else? Any creature, even the insects, the animals, the birds, the fish, who's supposed to provide them? Allah subhanahu, that's His job. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned that in the Quran. وَمَا مِن دَابَّةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ إِلَّا وَعَلَى اللَّهِ رِزْقُهَا. Anything which is move on earth, it is indeed her rizq. It's on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when Allah give me this honor, He say, okay, I want you to be in charge of that. Isn't that an honor for me? Or we see it differently. You see it like something is being taken away from me. It's not being taken away from you. We are actually giving you a better position. And I will close with this. If you are in a position of giving, and you are able to give, and you have what to give, and what you give is not going to make you poor, and is not going to really decrease your ability. Now let's flip it. What about if you are in the other position? You are in the position of asking, which one you want? You want to be the giver or you want to be the receiver? Just think about it. Being the giver and you feel proud of yourself. And you feel that I am giving, Allah is asking me to give. And you feel like I am the upper hand. Now the other position, it is you are the receiver. You are the beggar. You are in need. Which one you want? You know what? Allah could easily flip it. And you will move to the other one. And it happened to a lot of people in our time and the people before us. Guess what? Umar ibn Abdul Aziz radiallahu anhu, one of the pious people. He ruled the Muslims only for 2 years and a couple of months. And he changed completely everything. Anyone who thinks time is not enough, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz proved that that person is wrong. In 2 months, in 2 years and 2 months, he changed completely. The money was in the hands of the Muslims until there was not a poor person, and I mean it literally. They even, you know what? They give the money from Baytul Mal, from the zakat, that there's no poor person. He said, okay, this money will go where? If a person did not go for Hajj, Baytul Mal will give him. If a person didn't get married, the Baytul Mal will give him. If a person wants the second wife, Baytul Mal will give him. This person, when he was about to die, he didn't have no money. And his cousin came to him and he said, you're going to die and you leaving nothing behind you, and you are Amirul Mu'mineen, and you are, and you are. And his children were very little, because he died also young. He looked at him and he said, listen, Inna abna'i wahidun min ithnain. Indeed, my kids, either one of two. Imma salihun aw fasid. Either he's going to be a good man or a bad man. He said, if he is salih, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يَتَوَلَّى الصَّالِحِينَ. If he is a good person, I am sure that Allah will take care of him. But if he is a fasid, then I don't want to help him with my own money, right? Guess what he said? He said, فَوَاللَّهِ, the person who narrated the story, he said, فَوَاللَّهِ لَقَدْ رَأَيْتُ أَبْنَاءَ عمر ibn Abdul Aziz يحملون على أكثر من 200 جواد. He said, I saw with my own eyes, after 20, 30 years, some of the children of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz that he left them young and they had no money, they actually provided more than 200 horses for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with all what is needed. Think about what's 200 horses, like 200 cars loaded with whatever, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he said, and I swear by Allah that I saw with my own eyes the children of Hisham ibn Abdul Malik. Hisham ibn Abdul Malik is the one who will come after and he will become the Khalifa. And he left millions behind him. He said, I saw his children begging in the streets of Damascus. This is actually the situation. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us, to give us al-afu al-afiyah. Wa astaghfirullah lakum jami' al-mu'minin. If any comments? لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت وهو حي لا يموت بيده الخير وإليه المصير وعلى كل شيء قدير. اللهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم انصر إخواننا في غزة. اللهم ارفع عنهم الغضب يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم فرج كربتهم يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم فرج كربتهم يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم تقبل شهداءهم يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم واسي جراحهم يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين.